Hi everybody, Joel here again with A&J Education. I'm here today to bring you the first of a two-part series on writing effective critical essays. This first part is going to be talking about the qualities that all effective critical essays have, and then the second part is going to give you a general structure that you can apply to any critical essay you want to write to help you get those four qualities. So firstly, I just wanted to explain what I mean by a critical essay. There are lots of different types of essays, ones that you might find in the newspaper that are just sort of explaining something that happened, one that's trying to persuade you of a particular viewpoint. But by a critical essay, I mean one that is trying to evaluate a set of points and come up with a line of argument. It's the kind of essay that you're going to tend to have to write when you get to higher level at school, so during A-levels, and definitely when you're at university all the way through to postgraduate, and then after that when you're writing articles if you become an academic. And obviously, when I talk about the four qualities that all of these kind of critical essays are going to have, I have to be very general. Obviously, there are going to be different types of levels of detail, different levels of referencing that you're going to need if you're writing an exam essay, to when you're writing a sort of a tutorial essay or an essay for your teacher. But I think that these four qualities actually are found in every good essay, regardless of the context, if it's going to be a critical academic essay. So the first quality that I want to talk about is clarity. Unless you're an absolute genius, like Wittgenstein or Hegel, you're not going to be able to get away with writing stuff that's good in a critical essay if it doesn't have clarity. And I want to explain what I mean by clarity. It's something actually quite precise in this context. It means writing in such a way that your intended audience, if they put in the work to understand any new terminology or concepts, will be able to understand what you're writing about as easily as possible. That means not writing in sort of horrendously flashy sentences that are really long and have lots of subclauses, or using sort of archaic terminology because it makes you feel like you're a little bit cleverer. Obviously, the reason why I'm talking about intended audience is because you're not going to be able to explain astrophysics to an A-level English student to a high degree. You're not going to be able to explain high-level philology to a GCSE math student probably very easily. But the key is to be able to communicate your ideas as clearly as possible to your peers, and what that'll do is it will raise your level of writing. More people will be able to work to get the important bits and not just be put off by sloppy writing. And the thing with examiners is they are bored, they are tired, they're marking loads and loads of scripts. So if you can get clarity down when it comes to sitting exams, you're going to be writing exam scripts that examiners don't hate marking, and that will only help you. Now, the other thing which is really important is depth. And by depth, I mean the level of detail that you go into, the amount that you explain the ideas and concepts that you introduce, the amount of sort of background information you give about sort of the history of ideas that you're jumping into, the number of examples that you give, the number of thought experiments you use, that kind of thing. And now depth is incredibly important. It shows you've done your research. It gives you the basis, the foundation of evidence that you need to build up a compelling case. And actually, I think that the important thing here is you need to use it pertinently. I'll come on to that with a lot more detail later. But really, a little bit of depth over your whole essay is not as good as just using a lot of depth when it's needed. And I will talk about that in the next section. And the final point, the one that all of these other three qualities should have been building towards, is something that I call sustained incisiveness. Now, incisiveness in this context just means the ability to cut through to the heart of the matter, to see the pertinent issues with any ideas that you're discussing, and draw them all together to help your line of argument. And I call it a line of argument because I want it to be sustained, that's the critical word, sustained, throughout your whole essay. From the first sentence of your introduction to the last sentence of your conclusion, there should be consistent critical engagement with your sources, with the ideas that you bring up, that are all building up towards your overall case. And actually, really, in a lot of ways, the other three qualities that I've talked about are just there to facilitate people being able to recognize your sustained incisiveness. So clarity is there so that they can follow that thread, like I said, from the beginning of the essay to the end of the essay and see the sustained cumulative argument that builds up your case. Depth is there so that you've got the evidence there, whether that be in sort of thought experiments or actual cases, which you can then deal with critically, which provide the sort of raw material, the evidence for you to build up your final case. And precision is there so you know where to scatter that evidence so that you're not wasting anybody's time, and again, to contribute to clarity so that they can very clearly see this picture of sustained incisiveness all mounting up to your final the final case that you're making. And that's why really it is the most important thing out of each of these four. Thank you everybody for listening to what I have to say on the 4 qualities that I think make for a really great critical essay. Obviously this is the first part of 2. I hope you go on to watch the second part. That's going to be on how you can structure academic critical essays to make sure, or to help make sure that you're achieving those 4 things, that you're exemplifying those 4 qualities throughout your writing. My name has been Joel. I'm with A&J Education. We've got loads of other great educational videos up on our YouTube channel. I'm sure that there's a playlist probably to my left and to your right. Why don't you go and check those out? Thank you very much for sitting and listening to me today, and I hope to talk to you in part 2. Hi everybody. If you want a legitimate excuse to allow yourself to watch YouTube forever, click here to subscribe, click here to watch more of our videos, and then at least you can say you're doing something useful.